some hockey.
You were watching King's Corner, brought to you by 2554 Roses, and of course, Raw Hockey League, and the good people at Turnout Sports Management. We've got a great team, and we've got an exclusive one-on-one specific program. Our home is tomorrow, which is broken up, and of course, we're going to talk a little bit of hockey, of the Team Canada team, Canada Day. We will be celebrating a little bit different than we usually do. In family that you like to be in the public, this will be on the hockey. And let's say hockey day, it's Canada Day, but not hockey day. So we'll be talking to Becky Keller about great achievement. Also, being able to talk to you with the and now we're so blessed that Keller Keller-Duke. There we go.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. That sounds good.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. They are saying that my audio is a little wonky, so I apologize for that. So I hope you can hear me.
I can.
Robert Wine, how are we doing? Just checking to make sure the sound is proper. All right. Well, welcome you to King's Corner. Becky, obviously it's all about King Heights Academy, and it's brought to you by, obviously, the Paramount Sports Management, where you are the director of girls hockey. You'll be developing the program along with some great people here. So we're really excited to have you on today. First, we'll talk about your career, how you got to obviously represent Canada all across the world, and your accolades, of course, are large. Which we'll talk a little bit about. Then we'll talk about the program itself. Of course, the advantages of being involved in a academy versus just doing it through regular schooling and, of course, regular ice hockey programs. But I think the academy is shaping up to be one of the top academies in North America. And, of course, it's not just for ladies all around Toronto, but it's around the world, North America, and, of course, a lot of the world countries have the opportunity to join us. Let's talk about some of the things that you did as a young girl growing up and wanting to become a hockey player. Tell us about that, because it's obviously a few years back where it maybe wasn't quite as advanced, and I don't mean that because I go way back. I go to black, white, at least in color, but you fell in love with this game. Tell us about that, please.
Yeah, I mean, it really wasn't that common when I was a kid growing up. And so I started in ringette, which was pretty typical at the time, and then jumped into hockey when I was 12 years old. So late by today's standards, but I think more common when I was starting out. And so started in ringette, jumped into hockey, did both until I was 18. And, I would say most of the development that I did largely was on my own in my basement. I had a pond in the backyard. And so it was just hours and hours of having a passion for the game and just wanting to play and to get better. And I mean, really, for all these athletes now, that's where it starts. If you love it and you want to get better at it, then you find the time to do it over and over and over again.
Well, obviously, it's a little bit different than the boys' game, where you go to the level of getting into junior, the OHL, getting into a draft, and then making it to the National Hockey League, or going out in those days into Team Canada. Tell us how that progress for you is. You're playing, obviously, minor youth hockey with the girls, and then what's the next step from there?
Yeah, for sure. And that's changed a lot since I was coming through the program. And so when I came through, there's only a senior national team. Now there's an under 18 national team. There's an under 22 team. So really your first step as a young kid now would be trying to make your provincial under 18 team, which starts with an under 16 summer camp, under 18 provincial team for the nationals. From there, hopefully get scouted and have the opportunity to play on the under 18 national team, and then under 22, and then a senior team invite. And all along the way, for most of the girls, it's finding a place to play college or university hockey, whether that's NCAA or the programs here, which have gotten so much better over the last number of years. So there's a lot of opportunities for the girls. It's just what path they opt to choose. Certainly different than when I was going through, like I said, with only having a senior team and no head scouts and anything like that. So you really got a very small opportunity to make your mark.
So my very good friend, of course, and your friend, Paul Rosen, who's the host on Gooch Live, has really educated me in the national program. I myself never went through the national program. It's amazing, obviously, what you were able to achieve and how they did grow you through those different systems to make it to the national team. And if you don't mind me reading some of the accolades: gold medal 2002 at Salt Lake City, a gold medal in 2006 Torino, where you met Paul. I'm sure you met him before that. A gold medal 2010 in Vancouver, and of course in Japan in 1988 it was a silver. So 4 Olympic tournaments. You came home with 4 Olympic medals. 3 of them just happened to be gold, and 1 being a silver. And then on top of that, if you don't mind me saying, the ice hockey International Ice Hockey World Championships, a gold in Finland in 1999, a gold in 2000 in Canada, a gold in 2001, a gold in 2004, a silver 2005 in Sweden, a silver in 2008 in China, and then another silver in 2009 in Finland. Where do you keep all of those?
Well, the World Championship medals are sort of around the house, and the Olympic medals are either with me or they're hidden. So, they get a lot of airtime. I take them to a lot of places, so they're usually pretty readily on hand. The Olympic ones aren't displayed, unfortunately, for security reasons.
So there's a question that came in. Yeah, sorry. There's a question that just came in from Greg Bowden. What about CSSHL? What is that?
You know what? I'm not 100% sure.
All right, Greg Bowden, thank you for asking that question. We will find that out for you. Greg's a big supporter out in Vancouver of our program, and of course he's heavily involved in what's called floorball. All right, tell me about, as you walked, you had the first opportunity to play for Canada, your first shift, you walked out. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so my first year was the 1998 Olympic year. So I happened to get my first opportunity in an Olympics, which was pretty amazing. So we centralized, we relocated to Calgary in September, and it would have been an exhibition game, the first opportunity I had to put the jersey on. And it's sort of one of those surreal moments of, you've dreamt about it for so long that it's hard to believe that it's actually there. And then when we actually got to the Olympics, I think the same thing. We were playing Japan in Japan, and the crowds were amazing. And one of those moments again where you just think, oh my God, like I'm actually at the Olympics. I've been dreaming about this for so long. And then you hit a point where you're a little superstitious. You don't want to let yourself think about it until you know what's going to happen. And it's just the realization of many, many years of work and again, just the dream you have from a time you're a little kid that you want to play at the highest level.
And of course, listen to some of your teammates. You were one of 4 that participated in all 4 Olympics. Haley Wickenheiser, Jennifer Botterill, Jenna Heffer. Wow, what great company.
Oh, it was amazing. And Jana and Haley went on to play in a 5th, so which is pretty amazing as well, and win 4 gold medals. So 2 of those ladies are already in the Hockey Hall of Fame, and so to be able to say that I played my career with them is it's been, it's pretty amazing, I think, and women that have done so much for the sport and continue to do so much for the sport.
Well, just looking at your resume and all the great things that you've done, there's certainly a Hall of Fame knocking on the door very soon, if we're voting, for sure. A CWHL, that's the Canadian Women's Hockey League, top defender 2007 and 08, 08, 09, first All-Star team 08, 09, Central All-Star 07, 08. Tell us about the difference of playing for the CWHL and then playing, obviously, for the national team. That would be, obviously, a huge difference of competitiveness, but I think the passion and the love for the game is the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And the CWHL was so competitive. So, it didn't matter who you played. You knew you were in for a tough game. And in that league, you got the opportunity to play against all of your national team teammates. And some of the American girls were in the league as well. We had one of the Swedish national players on our team. So it was very good hockey, very competitive. And there were some pretty good rivalries as well. And it's funny how heated you could get on the ice with players that, a week later you'd go to Team Canada camp and they were your teammates. But I think all athletes learn how to make that separation. It's never quite the same, I think, as stepping on the ice for a Canada US game. I mean, to me, that's always the epitome, and those are the games that you just live for. But it was certainly a great league, and I'm hoping that, they're able to get things back up and running for the girls that are playing now pretty soon, because it's such a great opportunity, even for the young girls who are aspiring to get there. It gives them role models and a place to look to play one day. So I'm hopeful that things will be back up and running for them soon.
Yeah, that's got to be very disappointing for not only yourself of helping build this legacy. Obviously, with the and I don't want to get into too much of the politics, of course, because there is some behind the whole scene. But to have those young ladies that you're going to train and have the opportunity to hopefully make it to the national, the international game, that they don't have that step right now, and hopefully it does return. What would it mean to you to see it return into Canada? I know that there is going to be a team here in Toronto, if I'm not mistaken, but to grow this game and make sure the women's game is well represented, because in the men's league, it needs to be a national program.
Yeah, I think the big thing with the league is there's so many more girls playing hockey, and there's 23 spots available on the national team. So there's some phenomenal hockey players out there that may not get that opportunity, and so it would be great that there is a league, a good competitive league for those players to play. And hopefully the ultimate end goal is for it to be professional. But I think at this point, even just having a good competitive league for the girls to be in, where you could take your young daughter or son to watch. And the beauty of going to watch those games is they are so great. You see some of your national team heroes, and the ticket prices have always been low. So, you're spending hundreds maybe to go to an NHL game. You could spend $20 and go see a great women's hockey game. And for the young girls, I think you need that. You need to be able to see your hockey heroes and up close, not always on TV and not every 4 years.
Now, in your development, how important was the coaching for you? I know that obviously here at King Heights Academy, you guys, Jeff, has built an incredible team of experts. How important was it for you to have a coach that understood your style of game and was able to advance you to the areas that you needed to advance?
Oh, it's huge. And I had some great coaches all along, from minor hockey through college, through playing in the CWHL, to national team coaches. And my dad always said you can learn something from every coach, whether it's one thing or it's 100 things. And you take something away from all of them. I think, and it's not just the technical or the tactical side of the game, but sometimes it's the mental side and the approach. Sometimes it's just a coach who gives you confidence. And I think every athlete knows how important that is, to step on the ice and feel good about yourself. And so, I had some amazing coaches that helped to build me and to get me, to ultimately to where I was able to play. And a support system outside of that too, because the biggest thing for me always was my parents and what they were able to do to just get me to the rink and be supportive and let me flourish.
Well, Greg Bowden has just let me know it's called the Canadian Sports School Hockey League. So I'm not sure what that is all about, but we will look into that. Listen, talk to us about the mental part of the game. We're training our athletes, and I know when I came up and played pro hockey over in Europe, we didn't really do a lot on the mental training side of it. We were always doing the physical aspect of it. Obviously, the advancement with what we're doing here with technology, the mental side of the game has become very important. Can you give us kind of an idea of how you got through the mental part to walk out onto this arena and play for a gold medal?
Yeah, and it's funny because sometimes we look at the mental side of the game and we think, you'll either just be good at it or you won't. And to me, it's no different than the skills that you practice when you step on the ice as a hockey player. You have to practice passing and skating to be good at them. You have to practice the mental side. And so that means that seeing adversity isn't necessarily a bad thing. And you're going to see it as an athlete. Our sports psychologist with Team Canada, I remember him saying, you will fail more in one day as an athlete than most people will in a week or a month or a year. So, failure becomes commonplace. And so it's just learning how to be able to manage that and use it to make you better. And ultimately, I think that's the biggest driver is you fail and you either use it to get better or and you do get better or you don't. So we did a lot with our sports psychologist to help us to manage our nerves and to be ready to step on the ice for those big games. And it was practicing it, right? It doesn't just come overnight.
Now, are you a believer that the young girls and ladies should have the opportunity to play more than just hockey, not just, obviously hockey schools and power skatings and all these different, you think it's important that they take an opportunity to play, soccer or baseball, even basketball, that'll help you hone your skills to be able to play at a higher level when you're playing hockey?
Yeah, absolutely. I've always been a big proponent of multiple sports. And I think maybe it was easier when we were growing up. It was more expected. And so I played softball at a high level too. I played at Brown University, both sports. And then when I was in high school, I played everything. And I try to encourage my own kids to do that for a couple reasons. One, you need the mental break. You want to go back to hockey. You want to lessen the chance of repetitive use injuries. So I think there's that as well. And it just makes you an all-around better athlete. So I know that kids prioritize a sport pretty quickly, but if you get the chance to take at least even a couple months and step back from it, I think it'll make you a better athlete ultimately when you step back in.
So now we're dealing with, and of course, something that we've never had to deal with before, a pandemic. Obviously, the young ladies were looking forward to getting on the ice, maybe in some hockey schools right now, and preparing for September to get ready to go off and play for their club team, or obviously the ladies that aren't going to have the opportunity to play for the national team. How do you think this pandemic is going to affect the passion and the direction of hockey in the future?
Well, I think it's going to make kids want to get back on the ice because everybody's been forced into this break. But I think at the more elite level, it's really going to separate out the ones who are motivated on their own, to go out onto your driveway and stick handle, golf balls and tennis balls and hockey balls and do your workouts on your own because you can't meet up with your group. I think that's harder for some people. But it will separate them out a little bit. And I think when we are fully back on the ice, you're going to see a difference in the ones that have been committed to their sport and their training. I think overall, it is going to make people pretty excited to get back out there because you're going to miss it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing for everyone, right? To get that opportunity to miss it and to really want to go back to it.
Well, I can tell you right now, we have a young lady. I told you off camera, her name's Marnie Trapolino. I got a chance to meet her this year for the first time. She actually came to one of our games. Paul was at it actually in Adelaide, where he was the coach. And she watched this game. She'd never played hockey before. She was a cricket and rugby or soccer, and she just fell in love with the game. At 12, I guess she would have been 10 at the time. And now she eats, sleeps, and drinks the game. She's a huge Pittsburgh Penguin fan, and she's become a very big Becky Keller-Duke fan, and only through the internet. So you, as a player, probably didn't have that ability. I'm sorry not to age you at all, but we didn't have the internet quite as accessible as we do now to be able to type in Becky Keller-Duke, and then there's all your stats. So she's been able to do that from Adelaide, Australia. What can you say to a girl that's aspiring in a country that's not really hockey crazed yet? How did she develop her game? Is it through the internet? Is it being able to talk to people like yourself that can help her understand how to develop her ability to get better?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much on the internet that you can learn, drills and skills. And I mean, she could pull up old world championship games and NHL games, and you can learn a lot from watching, and then find a way to go out and repeat it. Ultimately, I think if you're going to be really, really good at this sport, you want to be probably in North America or some of the top places in Europe. But there's so much that you can do to get better now. And it's pretty amazing that a kid that is living in Australia can watch this sport that, you know, it comes so naturally to us. We live in the ice and snow and see it and have the same sort of passion that we have for it. And hopefully she gets the opportunity to come over here one day and to play in the midst of one of our winters.
Well, that's for sure. We're going to make that happen. Her father, Sam Trapolino, is part of our Stop Concussions over in Australia. He's doing a great job helping us there. So we'll make that happen, and then she can meet the legend, Becky Keller-Duke. Tell me who inspired you then when you look back and you're playing as a young lady. Who is one of your, if you want to call it, idols, or somebody that you looked up to and said, that's who I want to be?
Well, it's funny because there wasn't as much women's hockey to watch when I was a kid. So I did watch, you know, Geraldine Heaney and Angela James, but it was less frequent. So for me, I watched the Toronto Maple Leafs, and when Hockey Night in Canada was on TV, that's what we were watching. My dad didn't care what else we wanted. That's what was on. So we grew up watching, and I was a big Wendell Clark fan as a kid. So I think, you know, that those were sort of my heroes. And then as I got older and got more familiar with women's hockey at a higher level, I started to realize there was the Angela James of the world out there, and Geraldine Heaney's, and some of the girls that had played in that first World Championships in 1990. And that's, you know, when you start to go, you know what, I want to do that. I want to be like them.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Wendell Clark. You played like him, so you had that grit to your game. So I can understand why you have those skills. Listen, let's go to now. Obviously, leaving the game. The lights are turned off. The day's over. You've obviously won so many medals, and now reality kicks in. You're no longer traveling as much, obviously, and getting ready for the game. The mental part of the game. You know, you're there a couple hours before the game, then you play, and then it takes you a couple hours to get out of the dressing room. Now, probably as you play, you know, you show up 5 minutes before the game, as I do. You play 50 minutes. You go up to the bar and have a beer. Tell us the transition of being obviously very successful at the game, and then you knowing that it's time that you have to retire, and then you have to make some decisions, which I'll ask you about your direction that you took. Tell us what that feeling was and how you did it.
Yeah, well, for me, I made the decision I was going to try to go to the 2010 Olympics, and I knew that would be it. I'd had both my children during my career, so by the time 2010 was over, I was ready to step back from it. I mean, I loved it, but it was time for me, and so I was very fortunate that I had that opportunity to decide when I wanted to step back. So, you know, and then stepping into just recreational hockey again, it was a bit of a transition, especially because I do a lot of my rec hockey with men. So I'm in a room by myself, and, you know, some of that's not always the most ideal. It's kind of more fun to be surrounded by friends. But because I'd had my kids during my career, they were also starting to get into hockey. And so for me, it was a great segue into coaching and seeing that side of the game. And I've loved that part of it. So again, I was ready for the transition, and I miss it at times. I miss the big game when I watch the girls in the Canada-US game, you know, the World Championships or the Olympics. That's when I really miss it. But I was ready to step back from all the work that it took to get there.
It's you know what, a lot of people don't realize. They see you on TV, you know, putting the medal around your neck. Sometimes we don't realize all the sacrifices and all the extra work, especially obviously being a mother at the time too. You know, it just compounds it all. So again, just a tremendous career. Could you tell us, you had to make a choice. You retired, and then you didn't choose to be a sportscaster like a lot of the ladies have done, which is fantastic. You chose to be a keynote speaker. You're very good at what you do there. And then obviously your coaching aspect. Tell us how you kind of changed from being this player and now being a top coach.
Yeah, you know what? It's not easy. I think the very first time I stood on a bench in a game, I thought, you know, I've played this game for years, and I'm going to watch, and I'm going to know exactly what I'm seeing. And the first time I stood on the bench in a game and I was helping coach a junior team in Oakville, I literally was almost in a panic. I'm like, I don't see anything. I was so used to seeing the ice from a player's perspective, where I felt like I could have told you who was good on their team, who was having a good game on our team, what system they were playing. So it kind of took some time to see it from a different angle. And I think, it's one of those things that it probably happens to most players who become coach where, it's not exactly the same, and it is different, and you got to take time to learn it from that approach. And then there's so much more that goes into it. So learning to, deal with players and parents when you're coaching minor hockey, and so that side of it as well. And it really is a learning curve. So again, knowing the game isn't really all that there is to it. And so there were some of those other aspects that I needed to learn, but I've been very fortunate that I've had some great support around me in terms of assistant coaches and former coaches that you could call and lean on, and former teammates as well that could give you some advice. So, and I think that's always an important thing, is to be able to reach out and not go it all on your own.
How different it is, obviously, being on the internet and not having a live interview. Sometimes with the internet, it changes a little bit. You've gone a little bit sideways, but that's all right. Becky, I just a couple more minutes. Obviously, I want to talk about the Kings Heights Academy. What is Becky Keller-Duke's philosophy as a coach? How do you prepare yourself to come in, and either it's with a team or with a one-on-one, or now as being the director of girls hockey at the King Heights Academy? What's your philosophy?
Yeah. So to me, there's really three components to building an athlete, and I think it's passion, which comes from them. And it's, the skill level. So you basing what your objectives are on the skill level of your player, and then the opportunity. And so I think, you come into a place like King Heights, and hopefully the athlete's bringing the passion, and we're bringing the opportunity. To me, it's all about having a plan. So, if it's a one-on-one, knowing what it is that you want to work on, and what it is that the player's trying to achieve, because it's most likely obviously an individual skill session, to having a team and knowing sort of if you have a breakdown of, okay, we're going to do some individual skill days, we want us to do some tactics, and we want to do some team-based philosophies and approaches. So a lot of that is just sort of having a plan, and in being able to manage and navigate that plan, and make some changes as you go, but having an idea of where you're at and where you want to ultimately get to.
Sorry, I'm actually at the Paramount Ice Arena here on 407 and Dufferin. We're just having a couple of technical issues at this moment. I think I hear screw guns going off, so I apologize for that. So tell us about now taking over the direction, obviously being the director of hockey operations for the girls program here. How do you see you coming in and getting these girls ready to be the next Haley Wickenheiser or the next Becky Keller-Duke?
Yeah, so I think, going into the first season, it's probably going to be a smaller group. So it's largely going to be about building their skills, and trying to individually make each one of them better in terms of their skill set. Obviously we aren't practicing as a team, so it'll be a lot less in terms of team concepts, but taking their skill set and trying to build on it. I think the big thing in a situation like this is that you build something in an athlete that they could take to any team. Right. So obviously make them a better skater. It doesn't matter what system they go into or what type of coaching they go into in their club team, they're going to be better. So I think it's taking the group of players you have and figuring out where their skill level is. And it's going to be different individually, and then trying to make it better. The same when it comes to tactics, right? If you're able to teach them how to angle, then they can play in any forecheck. If you're able to teach them defensive side positioning, then they're able to play in any defensive zone coverage. So I think for me, it's those kind of things where you want to build skills and abilities that they can take back to their club team. And no matter what their club team's philosophy is, they'll be able to apply those new skills and those new ideas.
So one of the last questions I would like to ask you, obviously, when a girl is coming up through the program, and let's say she gets a tryout for Team Canada and she doesn't make the first time, some people get very discouraged and kind of maybe leave the game. So I think it's more of a mental thing. What's your what would you say to a young lady that maybe just hasn't got there yet? Not obviously, we don't want her to quit. We want her to actually go back and maybe work on some of the skills that maybe she's not strong at. How do you coach a girl like that?
Well, to start with, that's really common right now. Most girls aren't going to make it in their first crack, and one of the things, and I'll never forget this, Angela James had said this to a good friend of mine, Cheryl Pounder, because she had made the national team and then got cut and didn't make it back for a number of years. And one of the things she had said to her is, Rome wasn't built in a day, kid. And, you know, I remember her telling this story, and it's something she's never forgotten, because it's typically it's perseverance and the willingness to try to get better every day that ultimately is going to make the difference in the end. And, you know, I grew up in midget hockey with a lot of girls who were better than me, and we went to Team Ontario camp with a lot of girls who probably were ranked ahead of me. And ultimately, I think, you know, down the road, that's not always the way it's going to be. So a lot of times it's just persevering. And I got cut from Team Ontario the very first time I ever tried out, and I was devastated. And, you know, I remember my dad just saying, well, sometimes being at home is not the worst thing. And, you know, it took me a while to understand what that meant, but it really was just a challenge. And he used to always say to me, you give 100%. And I always thought that, you know, I told him I want to make Team Canada. He says, give 100%. You think that's, you know, pretty simple. But really, he was challenging me in that my goal was to give 100% every single time I stepped on the ice or in the gym, in a game, in a practice. And that was the expectation. And so I think if you live with that expectation, ultimately, you're going to achieve the most that you can. And you know what, you may fall short, but at least you'll know in the end that, you know what, I did everything I could to make Team Canada and I just couldn't quite, but look where I landed anyway, right? So for me, that's the biggest thing. Give 100% and it'll do you justice.
Well, that's a great philosophy, and thank you for that. So obviously, inspiring young ladies is so important today, and obviously, the game is not a men's game. This is a game for all equality, and of course, inclusion and diversity. So thank you for that. You're watching King's Corner here at King Heights Academy. The new director of girls hockey program, Becky Keller-Duke. Becky, as we let you go, please give us your final thoughts on how we can make sure understand and parents understand the opportunity here at King Heights Academy.
Sorry, you're kind of cutting out, so hopefully I got the gist of that. But I think, you know, I think for any of the girls that come, we're going to do our best to make you a better player. And, you know, a big part of getting better is, again, like I said, it's opportunity. And so the opportunity to be on the ice is as much as you would be in this program. I mean, you're going to get better just by virtue of that. And then with the coaching staff that I think we have in place, I think we'll do everything we can to make each athlete a better product that'll be better for you by the end of the season. And I think you're not having fun. You know, I think there's a great situation in place here for the athlete and for the coaches as well, and for everyone to thrive and have a great experience.
Well, great, Becky. Thank you so much for taking time out to educate us a little bit on the King Heights Academy. We're doing King's Corner. We will have you back on once we get live and the rinks full of all the young ladies and of course the men's program or the boys program too. We're really excited to have you here at Paramount Ice. And we're certainly excited about seeing you on the ice with these young ladies. All right, Becky Keller-Duke, incredible when you think about it. 4 Olympic medals, 3 of them being gold, 1 of them being a silver, and all the hardware from the International Ice Hockey Federation World Championships. I'll tell you what, very classy lady, very intelligent, and she certainly knows how to educate and prepare women for the next level. I think what we should really do is take a moment to say thank you to Becky for obviously all that she's done for Canada. Tomorrow is Canada Day. We've got a great show coming up. We've got Alan Stitt coming with his incredible, absolutely incredible jersey collection. He has taken some time out to take pictures of them all. We've got 20 Team Canada jerseys. We'll pick the best of them. They all have a certain purpose. They're all game worn in very important games. As we saw last week, we had Team Canada 1972, Yvon Cornway's jersey, the one that you see with him holding Paul after that incredible goal with only 34 seconds left to win the Summit Series. So we're very blessed to have Alan Stitt join Kevin Shea, so that we have the ability to bring you some of those jerseys that you just don't get to see. You ask that question sometimes. Do they all go to the Hockey Hall of Fame? No. And I'll tell you what, they are in the Hockey Hall of Fame. They're at Alan Stitt's Hall of Fame. We can't tell you the address because we don't want you showing up and trying to buy an admission to see them all. Hey, listen, look forward to tomorrow's show. It's Canada Day. Please celebrate safe. Please make sure that you stay at home. If you're going out, wear a mask. If you're going out, make sure there's 6 feet minimum social distancing, very important. And most importantly, hang out with friends and family that you know are safe so that they don't take it back to any of their loved ones. Obviously, we see down in the United States right now, it's a little bit out of control. Let's make sure we keep Canada safe. We want to get back to playing. We want to get back to practicing. We want to get back to school. And the only way we can do that is to make sure that we take care of ourselves. And by taking care of ourselves, we'll make sure we not pass it on to somebody else. So from King Heights Academy here at Paramount Ice at 407 in Dufferin, you've been listening to King's Corner, brought to you by Gouche Live, featuring Paul Rosen. Paul will be with us tomorrow. We'll talk about his gold medal winning jersey also as we celebrate Canada's Day. All right, guys, see you later. See you tomorrow. Thank you for joining in with Becky Keller-Duke, the director of girls hockey here at Kings Heights Academy.
Let's play some hockey.